In today's episode, we will talk about the growing trend towards precision education, which allows educators, students, and learners to leverage data and technology so education can become more personalized and learning can become more effective. Let's talk about holistic success. Hi everyone, I'm Anju Visen-Singh and I am the VP of Marketing at Acuity Insights. And with me here today is Dr. Kelly Dore. She is the co-founder and VP of Science and Innovation with Acuity Insights. She's also a PhD researcher with background in cognitive psychology and higher education. She's an adjunct professor at McMaster University and an international speaker and thought leader in the area of holistic success in education. Welcome, Kelly, and I am so excited to swap roles with you and put you in the hot seat for this episode.
Thanks, Anju. I'm so excited to be here and chat about precision education. It's a fun topic.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so great to have you on the show, and we are getting started. So, my first question to you, Kelly, is where did the term precision medical education come from, and how has this idea grown in recent years?
Absolutely. It's a term that I think we're hearing a lot more about. We're hearing people use the term precision education, but it's been around for a little while. And in fact, historically, it's something that we've always tried to do. We've always wanted our learners to succeed. So we wanted them to go from novice to mastery in a particular topic. And this goes back to, a long time ago, even with apprenticeships. Where we would take somebody and we would navigate through, and they would really be on a independent journey where it was sort of one-on-one, and we would help them with the skills or attributes where they struggled a little bit. And universities and colleges have continued to try and do this, where we bring in folks and we want to make sure they're successful at the end of the day. Because if they're not successful, not only is it really difficult for the learners and students, but it's particularly difficult for the programs too. They want to make sure that they're bringing folks in who are going to succeed. Now, in the past, historically, we've relied on single data points. So if somebody gets a certain score on an exam or in a course or at a certain evaluation, they get a score, and it tells us that maybe they have an area opportunity for growth in this particular area, or that they're really strong in this area. And we've used that to try and target and provide them information on, oh, you know what, you should go and read this chapter. Oh, you need to go and have an interaction more of this type to get practice and grow your skills in this area. The difficulty with that is that it's always been so isolated. So historically, when we've been talking about precision education, it's been a single grade or a single interaction that's driven our desire to say, okay, you need to, learn a little bit more in this area. Now the term precision education has grown to really say, how do we pull together all the data points of the learner across their experiences, even their past experiences before they actually came into our program, and say, how do we use this information to help them and guide them through what they're doing? And what's really exciting, Anju, is that more recently, there's been a huge push for diversification in our education, widening access, creating opportunities for everyone to get access to whether it's higher education or professional programs. And when we do that, we need to understand that it's not just at the point of admissions that we often talk about. It's that now we have a much more diverse, I'm talking about life experiences, training, access to a resource that they've had coming in to be our student body. And that means that our education process that we're about to put them through, once we have all these diverse students, can't be just a cookie cutter process that everybody goes through. Because what's going to happen is if we force everybody through a very cookie cutter model, is that we're going to have lots of people falling out. And so this whole concept of precision education is that we need to think about widening access throughout our entire education process. So it's our ability to understand the learner as an individual and then effectively deliver them educational interventions at the right time for the right learner. And to do that, we need not just a single point of data, but lots of data points pulled together so that we can provide them the feedback in the moment to help get them through where we're not waiting for potentially a failing grade or a bad interaction, that we're actually sort of able to say that we think this learner, based on this pattern of information, might need more support before they work with, go on a co-op, or before they see a patient, or before they progress to this level of course.
Yeah, that's great. Like you said, we can't use a cookie cutter approach. One size doesn't fit all. And it's not just about personalization, but it's about also timely personalization and timely intervention. So that leads me to the next question, which is what impact does precision medical education or precision education more broadly have on students and learners?
Right. And this is where, Anju, I get very excited when we think about the concept of student success and how we can help make sure that we're not only just getting them by, but we're helping them succeed to the best of their ability, so that the cohort that we graduate will still have different strengths that they come in with, but that they're all going to get to be really their best selves, which is who we want to graduate. And so, as we talked about, this is about more tailored, timely, and precise feedback that builds on patterns of information. So, not just isolated information where it's a single exam score, where maybe somebody had a bad day, maybe they had to write a test and they had the flu or something like that. We can use patterns of information, not just for those who are struggling, who are worried about failing, but maybe allows us to see with this precision education somebody who's been excelling all the way along, and then they start to dip, maybe not dip below lines of failure, but who start to indicate patterns of struggling, allowing us to intervene early. We know that when we intervene early, it's better for the students, it's better for our faculty, and it's better overall for the program. So it's about less time and impact on the students, the programs, the faculty, and the staff, creating better overall success. We're trying to, with precision education, meet students where they are, understanding if there's opportunities to support the learners, or groups of learners even, based on the data, and provide those resources early to the learners, but also helping advisors and mentors keep an eye out for things that students might be struggling, or they might have an upcoming issue with. So there's really exciting data that shows us when we can support learners, when we can help them get through these potential road bumps and do the intervention early. Not only is it more successful, but it creates more resiliency. It creates more of that concept of growth mindset in these folks, and creates better satisfaction overall in their programs. So it allows us to really work with these learners and these students and help them create an opportunity to not only succeed in the program, but actually have great satisfaction in doing it, creating strong alumni, and good opportunities for growth in whatever jobs they enter upon graduation.
Yeah, exactly. In just becoming much better professionals as well, no matter, what path they're
Absolutely.
going down. So that's great. And, I was getting so excited when you were talking about the impact on learners, because I just wish I had gone through education like that versus, all of these periodic tests, and then you are defined by
Mhm.
essentially what you score there. So this is such a great sort of learning environment and approach. Um, what are the benefits for the programs? We've focused on the learners, but I have a two-pronged question here, because as you were talking, there's clearly a pretty significant no, I won't say burden, but responsibility on the program side, on the instructional staff and all the advising staff, to really be there and be watchful. So let's first talk about the benefits to the programs, and then let's talk a little bit about the challenges and how those can be overcome, because it does require a shift in the way in which we've been doing things.
Absolutely. So, one of the great benefits to programs is, of course, successful learners and successful students. And that is all the way through. So, potentially less resource savings, meaning if you create efficiencies by providing just-in-time information to support students, maybe it's less faculty time and effort that you're spending in the long run, meaning that faculty and staff can spend the time working on the mission of the school. And speaking of mission, what this also allows, we talked about it a little bit earlier, is we know that schools want to create access to their programs and create access to education, oftentimes even tightly tied to the community that they're based in and serving their mission. And when we use precision education and creating successful students and successful graduates, what that does is create a successful flywheel for the programs. So you're bringing in more diverse student body coming from different life experiences, different backgrounds, maybe coming from different school systems that you can now start to pull from, broadening your recruitment. What that means is with precision education, not only are you bringing them in, but you're creating success for them at the end of the day, creating those successful alumni that are coming from diverse backgrounds, which only reinforces your ability to recruit from those diverse groups in the first place. So it really allows you to foster success and truly live your mission as well. And I think the other thing is that with the faculty and staff time being more focused on their mission and things like that, we're talking about the advisors, the faculty, and the staff who are supporting these students having more guidance on how to support students. I think sometimes one of the most frustrating thing, and speaking as a faculty members, when you have a student that you want to support but you don't know exactly where their needs are. Broadly they didn't do well in course A, but you don't know necessarily the particular areas. You don't know if that's a pattern. You don't know if there's other things that can help inform that. So having the power of that data pulled together really allows you to be much more precise and timely in that feedback, allowing you to have that sort of greater satisfaction of supporting students.
Kelly, thanks for sharing the benefits. And like I said, there is a second part to this, which is, it doesn't come without its challenges as well. So if you could just like maybe talk about some of the challenges and how to overcome them, that would be great.
Absolutely. Well, I think, first of all, it can feel overwhelming to think about precision education, how you're going to support every learner at every moment during their educational journey. And I think taking a step back and realizing that's not the goal here. The goal is to find opportunities for early, specific intervention for your learners. So it can be as simple also at looking at your curriculum, knowing that students who take one course might struggle in the next course. So if they've taken one course and they score below a certain grade, they're going to struggle when they go to the next level of course. Maybe it has a co-op, or maybe there's another piece to it that makes it more complex. Understanding that there's something that you could offer those students in between courses. So what is the manageable chunk that you can do from an improvement standpoint to help your learners make sure they're successful at that next stage? I think as well, we often get very worried about resourcing these types of interventions because it can be very daunting. And I think this is where we can leverage opportunities, whether it's through our curriculum map that we have it ideally tagged. We know the areas that they're struggling. So when we do our evaluations and assessments, we see the gaps in where they're struggling, so we can point them to very specific pieces in our curriculum where we can provide those. There's also resources that exist out in the world, whether it's finding through ChatGPT, which I know some folks have done, or other AI models where you can look up certain resources. So much now, there's online resources for specific content through online providers. Some of it's free, some of it's at a cost. But what can you support your students in finding or creating, and create even peer study groups in certain areas or topics? So it's not always faculty resources, faculty time, or staff resources. It's, can you create peer tutoring groups, which not only provides a leadership opportunity for some of your students, but creates that mentorship that others need. So there's different ways to think about solving the problem that's not always money and time and resources that we sometimes just don't have, This is
Mhm.
an opportunity to be creative. And one of the interesting things, Anju, is I truly think this is a time that programs can bring in the students, can bring in the staff, can bring in the community to help solve some of these problems, depending on what the topic is. So they can help have them help create the solution with them. It's not always that it has to be fully done by the academic program and then pushed out. It's sometimes there's an opportunity there and these grassroots trainings that can get done.
Yeah, that's great. And there's also more and more academic literature and papers as well on the topic so that you
Mhm.
can actually learn from your peers as well and just see what the entire community is doing around this. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Communities of practice for programs are such an important opportunity. So sometimes at a conference, there's calls for open tables, lunchtime discussions, those types of things. This is a great opportunity to start to create a community of practice.
So, I mean, you did talk a little bit about leveraging data and technology to really help with precision interventions or support.
Mhm.
Um, Specifically, how, like, can you paint a picture of someone who's actually delivering precision medical education, how they may be leveraging the data and technology to really support the learner?
Absolutely. So, oftentimes, one of the things that we hear from programs who are doing precision education is that they have an educational data warehouse. And what that means when they have that, I'll unpack that very big term, is that very simply put, their data is not stored in silos in Excel spreadsheets on somebody's computer that somebody has access to and somebody doesn't. You can still create, obviously, access hierarchies, but what it means is that your data is all in one system. Because if your data is dispersed and there are barriers to access, and barriers to access from pulling it all together, what that means is that you're only ever making decisions based on little pieces of information that not only may be hard to get, but might be inaccurate or not up to date. If you're pulling from an old spreadsheet, that's not helping you very much. And so, oftentimes, the schools that can actually leverage these tools and this concept of precision education have all of their data pulled together and integrated. It still can come from different sources, but it's all pulled together because Anju, you could imagine if you have hundreds or thousands of students manually trying to do precision education would be a terrifying idea. It would be impossible to leverage. So what you need is that data warehouse that's got the ability to actually pull the insights in a much more automated way for you. So you can start getting patterns or flags or understanding of when these interventions need to happen. So if you know, for example, that you're bringing in a cohort, maybe from a different educational background or who come from a differently resourced program, you might know that before they go into co op or before they go into a clinical experience, or maybe before they do a particular course, that if they do a prep course or they do have some additional learnings in advance, it makes their success much higher. Well, that's a process that can get automated where all of the students who fit that mold are flagged and that opportunity is provided for them in a much more self-serve automated way. The other way we look at it is an example I mentioned earlier, where the students who are being successful and they've been successful in all of their grades and their data points up to there may all of a sudden start to struggle a little bit, and that's something that could get automatically flagged as well because those data points would not often be picked up in a manual process because they're still technically passing, but it could be an indication of somebody who needs support from a mental health or a personal perspective, somebody who has had a life experience that may need some counseling or support for, or perhaps their course load is now just too heavy, and they need to adjust it. So there's lots of opportunities to get that data, but having the automation to pull the insights for you is one of the critical pieces to being able to accurately leverage precision education.
Yeah, thank you for that. And even as you were talking, I was just thinking there are some that are doing it well, and then there are many others who are going up the curve and like figuring out how best to go down this path. So, talk about going down paths. What is the future of precision education?
I actually think the future is bright. Some people, this may still feel like a bit of a new term, for them. It's really just starting to gain traction and understanding. And I think with AI and with other automations and integrations, we're only going to be able to leverage precision education more. So we're going to be able to help identify potential remedial actions, or we're going to be able to identify these students sooner. Again, the more we were reliant on isolated data or manual processes, this precision education feels impossible. But as we start to truly move to, education data warehouses and analytics platforms that can truly provide insights that aren't just, summary data, but actually give you the ability to interact with your information. I think that's where we're going to see schools, and schools with all different sorts of resource access. This isn't going to be just the ones with the $1 million alumni budgets being able to access this. I think technology is what's going to make sure that we can access this, and all programs across the board can access this. So I think the future is bright as we move towards this model. And what I think is exciting as we start to move towards this is that it's going to be something that students then want and demand. So it's going to help us truly create more of a growth mindset in our learners. It's going to be what differentiates our programs from others, where learners and students can come in and they can truly say, you know what? I know there's areas of opportunity for me. What are they? And actually start to be proactive in some of these spaces as well. So I think that when we start to give the autonomy back to the learner as well as just driving it from the program, we're creating different motivations, we're creating different engagements. And that's where we're going to see the holistic success of these students truly come from.
Yeah, that's great. And when I think about K to 12 education and higher education, I think K to 12 has been ahead of higher education in really delivering this kind of experience to
Mhm.
learners. So that is the expectation that they come with into higher education. So I think it's great to see the momentum that we are seeing in precision education now. Before I close off, I just wanted to see if you had any piece of advice for programs or schools going down this path.
Absolutely. I think it's don't be afraid of it, because it could feel very overwhelming in a manual way. And there's ways you can do it in very small doses. So perhaps you're just focusing on your school's mission, and there's particular groups of students who you want to enable to access your program, but who might struggle a little bit. Perhaps there's a small area you can start to focus and start to find resources for, because I don't want to imply that precision education means you should take any and all comers, because that might not be the resources that you have as a program to actually support the learners. So what you can do through precision education is really think about who are the learners that you can support, so that when you're bringing folks into your program, when you've got students, you know that you can enable them. So it doesn't have to be, an all you can eat buffet. You can pick and choose what areas you can start to focus on, so you can build resources and you can create opportunities for those students.
Yeah, and probably also reaching out into their community to see who else is doing it, and learn
Absolutely.
from hopefully others' mistakes, or just learn from their experience, to put it in a more positive way. So
Yeah.
Um, yeah, excellent. Thank you so much, Kelly, for sharing your thoughts and your insights with us today. It was a great discussion. And like I said before, very happy to put you in the hot seat and take your role in this episode. Um, to all of you, thank you for listening and watching. And, please don't be shy to share this episode with your colleagues who may benefit from it. And we will see you next time in our next episode. Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode of our Holistic Success Show, please be sure to check out our other episodes and don't forget to subscribe. We have new episodes coming out every week, so hope to see you as a subscriber soon.